Alright, now that I've ground out the season pass to completion, I have the new Tier 10 Premium American Tank Destroyer, the T114 Battalion Anti-Tank, or the BAT as we're going to call it. So, what's it capable of? Starting with the gun, of course, it's a 106mm recoilless rifle, which may sound familiar if you're a Cold War player, as this is World War II's first recoilless rifle to play with, I believe. These rifles have a very off-putting characteristic for many, however, that being their insanely low shell velocity, with 503 shell speed on its heat rounds and sub 500 shell speed on its HE at 498. And yep, that's it. Only 2 rounds on this bad boy. Heat standard and HE premium. The heat has 315mm of penetration for 420 alpha damage, while the HE has a very good 180mm of penetration for 570 alpha damage. This tank does have a 3-round autoloader as well, meaning that with heat you will have a clip damage potential of 1260 and an HE clip damage potential of 1710. With a base reload stat of 22.1 seconds, that gives you a base DPM value of 2692. On top of that, it comes with a very good 0.3 base accuracy value and 1.9 seconds of aim time, which is quite nice as the intro clip on this tank is 3 seconds between rounds. One annoying aspect of this tank is the gun limitations. Yes, it does have a full 360 degree rotational turret, but it only has 7 degrees of gun depression, which is decent, but only 8 degrees of elevation, which can really be felt when playing the tank on slopes. The combination of slow shell speed and limited elevation does limit the places in which you can shoot comfortably quite a bit more than I would expect. Too many times I found myself not quite level on the terrain to shoot my target, and twice even had little rocks that I normally wouldn't think would mess with my tank lift me sideways enough to drop my gun due to the elevation limitation. It didn't happen often, but the fact it happened twice and was noticeable I did find a bit annoying. As for its movement into positions, it's quite fast with 57 km/h forward top speed and a 22 km/h reverse speed. With only 160 horsepower, this tank is very lightweight, given that it has a 27.87 power to weight ratio. So you don't want to get rammed in this thing, obviously, which is a worry as you might find yourself close quarters in order to negate the slow shell speed by just getting in close. As for its maneuverability, however, despite having good speeds, it turns like a boat when moving at those speeds, so you won't find yourself easily dodging and darting around like a light tank would. It has a good enough traverse speed value, but seemingly only when stationary. Definitely something to be aware of when you go in for the drive-by. Of course, with it being lightly armored, you think it's quite easy to pen. And yes, it most certainly is lightly armored, but I've still had some odd things occur. First things first, the model is highly modeled. As you can see here, there's bits and pieces that normally wouldn't make it into a normal armor model. However, since Cold War's release, we've added some highly detailed armor models into the game that cause some annoyances, at least to me. But that should be its own separate video, as it's a whole topic in itself. As for the purposes of this review, all that needs to be said is that you will occasionally bounce around on this tank and question what just happened. Half the turret where the gun is seemingly spaced armor, so aim right of the gun if the thing's poking over a ridge to hit the actual turret. And there is spaced armor on top of the front hull and the sides that may come into play with some of your shots too. Overall though, if you're playing this tank, you're mostly relying on your size and positioning to make your enemies miss, rather than relying on your rarely trolley armor to save you, of course. But when it does save you, it's funny to see. But why let the enemy shoot you when you have decent concealment and view range to keep them at range, right? Well, the shell speed encourages you to get in close obviously, but anyway, that was supposed to be my segue into the concealment portion. This tank comes with 390 meters base view range, which is the typical best for tank destroyers at tier 10, before the Japanese tank destroyers released with 400 meters. It also comes with a steel concealment value of 338 meters base, which is nice, but guess what? That's still worse than the Turan, which also has 390 meters base view range. Isn't that wild? At least I think it is. But it's still good though, and this thing with its small size and 390 meters view range can act as a last resort light tank if needed at times, which is fun to do when the time comes. Like last season, if you complete 20 extra stages past season pass completion, you will earn the skin for this tank too, which is a nice bonus for continuing to play post pass completion. And it's a decent enough looking camo. I personally think it's bland from the front, but the back has these colicans that give it some character that I really enjoy. Overall, this tank is a unique one for sure, even if it feels like it was shoehorned in tier 10 instead of putting it in Cold War. Just for the record, I don't mind it being in World War II, but it's just a feeling that this was meant to be a Cold War tank. But regardless of that, it makes you work for your damage, especially if you're actually sniping with it. It requires a lot of patience and timing with your shots with that low shell velocity. One thing I almost forgot to mention is that because of its low shell speed, it lobs the rounds in an arc at distance in order for them to hit, and in doing so, it hits the enemies at an angle from above. And that feature has allowed me to hit and pen the upper plates of some vehicles that I don't believe I would have otherwise with a straight shooting heat round. Like I said, a unique tank and experience that I like at tier 10. It was both frustrating to figure out, but also fun to play around with during my play sessions. And being flexible with limitations is how the game should be, and this tank fits right in as a high skill ceiling tank that has its obvious drawbacks. Before we get into the games, let's go over my loadout real quick. For equipment, I have optics, kimono, and vents, and for my consumables, my usual premium repair kit, food rations, and standard med kit. As for the ammo loadout, I kept changing it up as I went along, but near half and half is good. It truly depends on you, however, which round you prefer to have most of. Commander skills are my usual tank destroyer setup with 6th sense, rapid loading, steady aim, born leader, snapshot, situational awareness, run and gun, camo expertise, and silent driving. Now let's get into that gameplay. And I have 2 games for you in the bat. First one is here on Swamp. Now, like I said in the review, the tank is very hard to play with at distance, but we're gonna sort of do that because, well, you don't want to brawl with the light tanks first off, right? So even though you want to get in close, on certain maps and in certain scenarios, you have to sit back. And so that's what we're going to do at the beginning here. We're going to try our best to snipe across the way. Hopefully, the thing you want to do is catch out people who aren't expecting to be spotted, so when they're spotted, they don't immediately react, and hopefully you react quick enough that before they move, especially perpendicularly from you, you can land that shot at 500 meters per shell speed. But firstly, this light tank's gonna come up, and you saw there my gun actually couldn't hit him until I backed off and got more level ground because of that gun elevation. And like I said, there's plenty of spots and plenty of scenarios where you'll find yourself fighting with your gun elevation. But we did set him on fire, and then he YOLOs his one shot life away for whatever reason. But we're gonna pull back up here now that the light tank is gone, and we see where their other light tank is. He's in the north, so we're kind of safe here. Now, I tried hitting the back of that bar with his outline. He was too fast for my shell to get there. He was too fast at reversing, but we ended up aiming lower behind him, not at his outline, and we were actually able to hit. And we didn't pen him because we had 700 damage, and this is 570 alpha, but we did do a nice chunk of damage. So we're just looking for more shots. We have our light tank up under them, and that gives me the cue that it's time for me to go up under them. Because if he's there and he's not being circled by their light tank, because both of them, well, they have 2 light tanks dead and there's 3 in this game, so there's 1 more light tank to get rid of on their team, and we have all 3 of ours. So now I get to move forward, and I'm hoping that I can get shots behind the people on the castle, but look at that. Their last light tank, here he comes. I put 1 into him and I pen, I put another into him and I pen, and obviously I'm going to finish him off without needing to pen that last one. There you go. Light tank gone. If he didn't take any shots from anybody else, my clip damage potential would have taken him out. The only light tank that you can't really guarantee you take out with 3 full HE pens is if you low roll the 1600 ones, obviously, but also the Panzerwagon after being buffed. Now this shot, amazing. Right into the engine of the E4. 180 millimeters of pen is definitely enough to go through the side of that. And I'm hoping he looks at my light tank who's going to drive around him now. Hoping he turns around, but he's looking this way. He's just like not letting us have it. But he gets shot in the side, so I figured he'd start moving, and he does. I just wanted to track him there, but it didn't work. But he ends up standing still and gives me his side engine again. And so we get a full pen into his engine deck. And it's 12 to 11 already, and we already have 3,500 damage. So the game's not going by too fast, which is hopefully going to allow me to get even more damage here. Now we know there's people to the left in this little divot, but with the heavy tank and the tank destroyer behind the mound in front of me, I'm able to kind of poke this. And luckily, this is exactly what I was hoping for. They were looking the other way. Put 2 into the engine deck of the E3 this time around, and then I hope to kill him with splashing his lower plate. I couldn't really aim under him. I could have aimed at his backtrack though, so I could have maybe killed him there, but we don't, and he stays alive. Now I notice on my mini-map those guys are coming around the corner, and believe it or not, the bar actually gets a shot on us. Okay. Luckily we didn't get ammo rack set on fire, or it was an HE round. None of that. Surprised we lived though, and surprised he even got to bum it around the corner that quickly and put a round into us. But now that we are virtually one shot from any tanks on the enemy team, don't want to play there anymore, do I? And it's 8-10, so we're kind of losing. I want to help this guy on this lane because I know I can have shots if they push him. But the medium that I'm hoping for to come around the corner doesn't seem to be wanting to, and the heavy tank made it across, so there's no point in the heavy tank coming out into the open in my vicinity. He just took 1,000 damage, so either the bar or the E3 high rolled him, and it's not looking good for him. But an E3 pops up, another E3. Want that engine deck, he's not going to give it to me. So, just going to keep aiming, and somehow, what? Somehow, we do 300 damage to the side of the E3. I'm not sure if I somehow threaded the needle, and somehow penned his side, but we'll take it, right? We'll take it. We lost all of our light tanks now. Just as I say that, we lose our last one. And so, seeing that it's 3 tank destroyers and 2 artillery pieces versus 2 heavies, 2 TDs, and 2 arties, now's one of those chances where I get to be the light tank, right? And knowing that the heavy tank is where that guy just pinged, I'm just gonna sit up in these trees and hopefully spot him as he comes out. That's the plan. And so, we're just gonna sit here for the moment and wait, because there's no point in aggressing anywhere when I don't like have the HP to even take a hit. I can take a hit from the heavy tank, but that's about it. So now it's just a waiting game, right? We knock down the tree, we sit in the bush, and we wait. We're expecting him to come down the 0 line, right? Which does have a lot of trees. He can get pretty close before he gets spotted, but it doesn't matter. Like I said, we're just going to wait. We're going to play the light tank role now. And this is one good thing about this tank, but remember, the Terran still has better camo than this, which is just wild to me. That just, like, the Terran's just wild, but it's big, and so you don't feel comfortable light tanking. This thing I would feel more comfortable in, right? And it is going to take a little bit, but that's what you got to do. You got to be patient in this kind of scenario, right? You can't just grow impatient and go and throw your life away, like some light tanks do. He does get spotted by me, but he went out into the open, not what I was expecting, which means my E4 actually does have a shot on him. If he came down the 0 line, my E4 wouldn't have had an easy shot on him, but he kind of went out right in the open. So there's free 800 spotting damage for us. And now it's a 5-5, and I'm hoping and hoping and hoping nobody on their team is going up the A line in order to get to the corner. And I see that I spotted the heavy tank, but I want to get into a position where I can actually shoot him. But as you'll notice, my gun elevation is gonna make that hard in this area, but we managed to have just enough. We're waiting for him to kind of angle his upper straight at us, and we're doing that thing I was telling you guys about, lobbing the round at an angle into his upper plate. Even though the reticle was orange and yellow, I realized aiming at his lower plate's not going to make any difference because it's going to come up at an angle, and it's, you know, the lower plate's looking down, so you might as well shoot the upper deck, right? And it worked. It was more flat on, and it was able to pen because of that. So we remove him from the game, and that's 5-4. And we know there's a bar alive, and I'm not sure what the other tank destroyer is, but obviously 2 artillery pieces that I don't want to get shotgunned by. Now, the thing is, with the artillery pieces, I actually have to load my HEP in order to kill them, because a 1260 clip potential with my heat rounds will not kill artillery at tier 10 in this new day and age of artillery 2.0. But I'm not worried about them right now. I'm worried about the tank destroyers, so I still have the heat loaded. I came over here just to like check if anyone was coming up this way, which is why I slowly walked out, but I want to go back to where I have arty cover around this corner, rather than playing there where they could have a straight line on me, you know. So we come back around over here. We have these trees, but I decide not to take it. And man, if I would have gotten spotted, my terrible driving would have most certainly gotten me killed. Now, one of the artilleries kills themselves, which hopefully I do report for unsportsmanlike behavior, because even though we might get the kill XP for that, that was damage potential that I won't have anymore. Now, somehow that hit his track, but I'm not going to risk poking a bar, especially after he hit me the first time. And he is looking this way. So I'm just going to wait for him to die, but he did fire. Artillery hit him for half his HP, half his remaining HP, and he did fire. But we hit that one, right? Like, that makes sense. We missed the first one on his upper deck by hitting his engine somehow. And then that one, we just fling it at his face and we get it, right? Now, here I'm hoping, please, I want my Top Gun. I want to pass 6,000 damage, but I have it one heat round loaded. We'll pass the 6,000 damage mark, but we won't get our Top Gun. Not a bad game, though. We got our light tanking roll. We were able to showcase that. 1632 base XP does only go for a first class, which is wild to me, but that's what happens when a new tank comes out. Really high ace tanker values. Now, the second game is on Pilsen, and this one, I'm gonna spoil it, is a loss, but I still felt it showcased your close quarters capabilities with this tank, whereas that one showcased how I had to lead the bar at the beginning, how I can shoot the upper plate of heavy tanks with the lob at distance to get the pen off, even though the pen indicator tells me I wasn't going to pen, right? And how I could play a light tank role for when it's needed, right? So I felt like that game was a good showcase of the capabilities of this tank and the uniqueness of this tank. This one is a showcase of what you're forced to do when you get scenarios like this. Now, immediately a Canonian Jagdpanzer's running in onto my corner of the map, and I don't like that. So he didn't spot me coming around. He thinks he's good. He's not. I get rid of him, but a Bellerophon on our team dies. The Tiger 2. We're gonna hit the reload. We're gonna knock down this tree, and we're gonna set up in this corner. Oh, we actually did touch the tree, but it didn't get knocked down. That's funny. Artillery is looking at us, and he did me a favor. He actually broke part of the brick wall that I need to be broken, but I need more of it to be broken. But with an autoloader, you really don't want to waste shots, you know, breaking stuff. So I'm kind of hoping he like hits it again, but he's not going to. He's aiming towards us, so he's not going to hit that brick wall. Now, this is Skew Spawn's Pilsen, so there's not really much you can do on this side. I think I would prefer the other side of the map, even though with the slow shell speed, there I go, I'm wasting my rounds. I said screw it. I need to get rid of these brick walls so I can see around the corner. On the other side of the map, the way this map plays, most people poke the ridge on the 4 line and then back off. So they kind of drive in straight lines to where my shell speed might not be that big of a detriment to me. Now, this TS-60 is making it hard for anyone to help him, because he's just going around the corner and pushing the Tiger 2 back, but I'm really hoping the Tiger 2 decided to go for him, but the light tank goes around, so that's not happening. Despite my team doing what they're doing, my best course of action is to wait. It's not to go join them, it's to wait, because I recognize that there's someone A7, and I recognize that they might die, and I have to play it safe. This light tank doesn't realize what he's doing, and unfortunately, I let him get a hit into me because I didn't think he would snapshot. But, you know, 6.0, I should have expected that. He gets to live, but we at least put 2 into him. I was really hoping with heat rounds that I'd set him on fire like we did in the previous match against a French light tank, but we did not. Notice that the TS-60 died. Who could have seen that coming, right? Who could have seen that coming? And I'm just hoping that the enemy team wants to peek. And one of them looks like they are. So, even though we're spotted, we're not targeted yet. So we're going to take these shots as best we can. And now, I just realized, pay attention to that Murat, because he comes into play much later into the match. Wow, I didn't realize that. We're going to go back into this spot because our team cannot push this despite them trying. We just haven't killed enough yet, and we're not... what's pushing isn't tanks with better spotting capabilities. Like the Boundbreaker, bottom tier first of all, pushing out in the open, mediums behind him. We're just not making the right plays. Now it's 8-11, and I'm hoping the 3 tank destroyers in the south with artillery support don't lose that flank entirely. So I'm staying up here still, hoping that the enemy team realizes that our team is throwing, and they start to make a push themselves. That's what I'm hoping for, because that's what I need. I can't really make a push play with this thing. Firstly, having an autoloader, and secondly, having the shell speed that I have. Like, yeah, I could get close into the A1 corner. Or, sorry, not A1, but A7 corner. That wouldn't do me any good. So it's purely a waiting game right now. Now look how much lead I had to put onto that tank. I couldn't even use the outline of the tank. And I hit dead center of him. So if I would have used the outline, I would have missed his rear. Artillery being really annoying though. And the 60 TP gets to stay alive and do this. And this portion of the game really had me peeved. Because he's out in front of the building. And the 2 guys at G3 aren't killing him, and they're gonna let the ISU 152 die to the 60 TP. And because of the 60 TP's confidence, because of his position in play, and the fact that he's not taking any damage, luckily Leopard 1 had my rear. 13105 was about to come around, but because of this 60 TP, look what happens. ISU somehow lives for that long, but look at them. They're all pushing now. They all just push. Why did we let that 60 TP live like that? There's another one pushing into the middle, but I realize now, I have to go brawling in these warehouses in order to keep my team alive. Now, I'm fighting an auto reloader, which kind of sucks for me, but luckily, he had just enough damage that my heat rounds would make quick work of him. And for some reason, he didn't realize that I was an autoloader or something, and he needed to dump his mag. So, I only take 1 hit from him. Going to reload now because I have to, and see that the Draugen is rolling up on artillery. So, I gotta get in there. Firstly, my team has now vacated the north, so I gotta vacate the north, and I gotta get in with the team, and hope that we can somehow bring this back. Even though we're losing pretty badly, we're in our element, right? We are in close quarters. That was a lucky hit, because he was driving perpendicularly. That's a word we're using a lot. But he was driving that way, and I just RBRT'd it, and luckily it hit. I realized I need to reload so I can get some damage out, because 2 in the mag's not enough. This Conry's coming in, but notice there's a tank destroyer coming down the 1 line, and it's a Death Star. I cannot take a hit from a Death Star, so what do? Well, the Kyrie's moving in. It's now just me and Artie. We only got rid of 2 tanks before I could reload. And so we're going to set him on fire. We have loaded an HE round, by the way. We set him on fire. He uses a fire extinguisher. Death Star missed. Thank goodness. We get to get rid of the Kyrie. What do? I gotta get away. Death Star pushes into me, but I'm able to vacate the area, go this way, right? Death Star's gonna follow me in my path exactly, which is what I'm hoping for. Borsig appears out of nowhere. He doesn't shoot. Luckily, I had HE loaded, so I 2-shot him. And here comes that Murat. I notice he's driving in front of me. He is 1-shottable if I high roll HE, but I don't pen. He bounces me, but he has an autoloader. Death Star missed. Had I penned this Murat and high roll, that would have been a top gun. That would have been 7k damage, and I might have been able to get away. But unfortunately, it just wasn't enough. My team just folded. That 60 TP really made the game-changing play there. But we did a lot of damage. And that is what the tank is capable of. You have quick reloads for a 3-round autoloader, and you do have a decent enough alpha damage potential on both of them. So, anyway, that is the T114 Bat. If you pick up this tank, let me know how you're feeling about it. But overall, to me, I think it's just a decent enough tank that makes you work for your damage and isn't freebies, which is very nice to see, especially a tank that we've created. Usually, I can only say that about tanks we take from PC, and the tanks we create are overpowered. It's a strong tank in the right hands. It's not a strong tank in any hands, and that's what we like to see. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.